crisis continues to devastate families and communities across our state. This is a crisis that's very personal to me, and it's one I'm committed to fighting at every level. 2 years ago, we stood before you with proposals to address this issue, but unfortunately, those bills did not move forward. Today, I'm here to tell you that we're not backing down. We have reintroduced those bills and are bringing new ideas to the table because our communities need action. They cannot continue to wait. The bills we are discussing today are designed to take both immediate and long-term action against this deadly epidemic. This deadly epidemic is inflicting our state monumentally. First of all, I want to talk about my bill 1569 in the Senate. This bill takes a strong stance against fentanyl by increasing penalties for those who knowingly manufacture, deliver, or possess fentanyl-laced substances. Under this legislation, individuals caught trafficking fentanyl will face an additional 3 years in prison on top of any other sentence imposed for possession or trafficking of controlled substances. We must ensure that those who chose to poison our communities are held accountable. Next is Senate Bill 280, which would make the unlawful sale or trafficking of any drug containing fentanyl a Class X felony. It would be punishable by 9 to 40 years in prison and a fine of up to $250,000. Additionally, using electronic devices to further traffic fentanyl would be a Class 1 felony, and that would carry a fine up to $100,000. This bill is tough, but we need to send a clear message. If you traffic fentanyl in Illinois, you will face severe consequences. These bills are about holding people accountable who profit off of this poison. But we also need to make sure that we're providing resources to help those who are unwittingly victims of this crisis. That's one of the reasons I was the Senate sponsor for House Bill 3203 in 2023, which provided greater access to fentanyl strips. Additionally, I'm proud to have the McLean County Coroner, Dr. Kathleen Yoder, here with me today. She's been on the forefront of this fight. She has seen firsthand the devastating impact of fentanyl has had on families. We are working together to make sure that these deaths are reported accurately and that this crisis is truly dealt with. Fentanyl is a poison. We must recognize it for what it is. We need to stop the stigma surrounding fentanyl victims and start treating this issue with the urgency and seriousness it deserves. Fentanyl isn't just a problem for certain communities. It's a problem for all of us. And if we don't act now, we will continue to lose more lives. Thank you for your time, and I'd like to turn it over to my colleague, Dr. Kathleen Yoder, the McLean County Coroner. Thanks.
Thank you to Senator Sally Turner and Sue Rezin for inviting me to speak. I'm Kathleen Yoder, the coroner for McLean County. Also, I've been in medicine 30 years. I've been a nurse practitioner for the past 20 years. When I first became coroner in 2014, the opioid epidemic was emerging in my county. Many of these overdose deaths were related to opioid prescription drug abuse, with medications such as hydrocodone, oxycodone, and methadone. Opioids are an essential nervous system depressant, causing depression of the respiratory system, decreased heart rate, and possible death. Now, over the past 10 years, overdose deaths are related to illicit, synthetic acting opioids, rather fentanyl, not prescription. Examples such as acetylfentanyl, parafluorofentanyl, acrofentanyl, and carfentanyl. Carfentanyl is an extremely powerful, just the size of a grain of salt, can kill a 250-pound man immediately. Fentanyl is now being mixed with heroin, cocaine, methamphetamines, and at times marijuana. A person should assume that most illicit drugs contain fentanyl. With the increase of opioid-related deaths, naloxone, an opioid reversal medication, can save lives. Sadly, many doses of naloxone, at times 9 to 13 doses, are needed to save one from a fentanyl overdose. Unfortunately, over the past 6 months, I'm seeing fentanyl mixed with bromazepam and illicit benzodiazepine. There's no reversal agent on the street for a benzodiazepine. Naloxone will not reverse it. Moreover, there's a rise in nitidazine and xylazine, which is a street name called tranq, mixed with fentanyl overdoses. These illicit drugs are not opioids, thus naloxone will not reverse. This sad reality means that naloxone alone cannot solve this problem. We need a holistic approach that includes keeping these dangerous drugs off the street and holding those trafficking these drugs accountable in order to safeguard their unwitting victims. The fentanyl crisis is a crisis for everyone in every community. This is a poisoning. Thank you. I would now like to turn it over to Illinois Senate Minority Deputy Leader Sue Rezin.
Thank you, Dr. Yoder. Thank you, Senator Turner, for being such a great advocate for all of these bills. Good morning. I'm Illinois Senate Republican Deputy Leader Sue Rezin, and I represent the 38th Senate District. Fentanyl is a poison that's ravaging families across our state. It doesn't care who you are, what community you come from, or what your background is. Fentanyl has claimed too many lives, and it's time we take necessary actions to address the crisis. That's why I'm proud to stand here with my colleagues today as we reintroduce our legislation aimed at holding the perpetrators of this crisis accountable. Fentanyl is not just an overdose. It's a poison, and it's time we started recognizing it for what it is. Senate Bill 1283 would make sure that fentanyl deaths are reported correctly, not as overdoses, but as fentanyl poisoning. When we treat fentanyl deaths as overdoses, we minimize the impact that this drug has on the victims. The vast majority of time in these deaths, fentanyl is not something someone chooses to use intentionally. It's something they take when it's laced in other pills or products. Families are losing loved ones, not because of addiction, because they are unknowingly being poisoned. Right now, too many parents feel forced into silence because of the stigma surrounding an overdose death. As legislators, it's our responsibility to ensure that people who die from this poison are recognized as victims, not just another overdose statistic. In addition to this bill, I'm proud to sponsor another bill, Senate Bill 113, which would place the burden on the defendant to prove they do not pose a threat to the community if they're charged with fentanyl trafficking. This bill aims to prevent fentanyl traffickers from being released back into the community too soon. And it helps ensure that communities are kept safe while these dangerous individuals are brought to justice. We recently saw a case within my own Senate district where a suspect was caught with enough fentanyl to kill 1.5 million people and was released pre-trial simply because he was an undocumented minor and his full record was not available within the required 48-hour window. Senate Bill 113 seeks to address this dangerous loophole by ensuring that individuals facing serious fentanyl trafficking are presumed to be detainable under the Safety Act. This shifts the burden away from prosecutors and judges and makes clear that the safety of our communities come first. There's no time to waste. Every day we wait, we lose more lives. We need to give law enforcement the tools they need to tackle this epidemic and provide our families with the support that they need to heal. Thank you, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
A question I have is a lot of Democrats that are in the House and Senate, are against adding more incriminations to, anything. How do you think you will convince Democrats to support these bills?
Yeah, Senator Turner.
I just wanted to mention this morning we had a women's caucus, and Senate Women's Caucus. And all my peers were very receptive to this because they know that it affects everyone. There's not one simple area that it affects, it's everyone. If you don't know someone that's been tainted with fentanyl, you will. I mean, you will shortly. So they recognize how important it is as well. We left you speechless.
Great job. Any other questions? We have a very knowledgeable coroner here, Dr. Yoder, that's able to answer any questions on what she's actually seeing locally within her community. And it's astounding to us that this topic has become such, we're so desensitized to talking about fentanyl deaths. And I remember many years ago, as I said before, fentanyl should be treated and talked about as a poison. So maybe it will be back in the forefront and we won't be desensitized to all of this that's happening. But many years ago, we had the case with Tylenol where there was poison in Tylenol and there were 5 deaths and it was international news. Everyone was talking about it. And here we are today. We have over 200 deaths a day. That's the equivalent of one airliner crashing every day. Can you imagine if a jetliner crashed today? It would be, and rightfully so, international news for quite a while. But yet we have this epidemic of people dying and being poisoned every day. We need to change the thought process. There are several bills here. We're at the table offering up suggestions to treat this topic and to help with this topic and to make sure that people who are peddling fentanyl are held accountable. Yes, it's an enhancement, I get that, but that's a message that we need to send. And for the families that have lost, and everyone knows someone who's lost somebody to fentanyl poisoning, we need to change the conversation from overdose and allow these families to come out of the dark so they can talk about their child, their loved one, their father, their mother, son, daughter, who was poisoned by this terrible, terrible drug that's being allowed into our country. So again, happy to take any questions. If not, thank you for being here.
Can I say one thing?
Yeah, sure, thank you.
You know, you can get fentanyl in the hospital for pain medication. Let's say you broke your femur, you'll get pain medications. The acrylfentanyl, acetylfentanyl, parafluorofentanyl, these are actually drug cartel, clandestine drug lab drugs. It's a poisoning and it's made. So these aren't the drugs that someone would get into in a hospital. These are illicit street drugs. Okay.
That's it. Thanks for
Yeah, good clarification.
Actually, I have a question for the coroner. Is there a good place where we can look at, kind of the statistics of deaths due to fentanyl in, surrounding counties?
Yeah, the DEA has a very good website. I will also tell you that, back when the opioid epidemic first started, the American physician said in 2016, actually talked about the opioid crisis and said to watch how you prescribe medications. And, they were doing Narcan. The police and the paramedics were carrying Narcan at that time. In my county, July 31st of 2017, we only had 7 overdose deaths. In 2016, where we were actually carrying Narcan. I was doing education to the local law enforcement. So if you think about it, we had 7 deaths. By the end of the year, we had 40 deaths. That's when carfentanil, acetylfentanyl, acrylfentanyl came in. That's when those synthetic drugs came in. So it's increasing. So it's fast and rapid.
I would also like to ask one of the legislators what the importance of pushing these bills are now. The Pritzker administration just released a statement today, and they said that deaths involving synthetic opioids decreased by 9.5% in 2023. So the importance of pushing these bills today in 2025.
Did you want to go?
I would say, first of all, Senator Turner has been an advocate putting together a package of bills along with several bills that I've had for many years. I mean, great, we've had a decrease in fentanyl deaths, but considering where we were to where we need to be, we're nowhere near being able to take a victory lap. I feel that, first of all, we need to give law enforcement and judges the ability to detain people who still are able to cross the border, bring fentanyl into our communities and poison our communities. If they are trafficking, if they are carrying a large amount, they should be detained, period. And secondly, let's switch the conversation about the talk about what fentanyl is. We're allowing this poison, it's no different than any other poison out there, to enter into our communities and kill our children. We should be outraged. So I'm glad that there was a decrease, but we're nowhere near where we need to be. This is just the first step. And I thank Senator Turner because of her firsthand experience, having the wherewithal to continue to push her bill, which includes penalty enhancements, to try to stop and increase that 9% decrease to even a better percentage.
I just want to add one more thing, and that is, I believe Dr. Yoder mentioned that now there's different forms of fentanyl that are coming out. I think we're going to see more deaths because of Narcan doesn't work on everything. So I think she's told us that maybe we're going to see that in the future. And also I wanted to mention a packet of sugar that you get at the restaurant. That's about 2 milligrams. If you compared that to 2 milligrams of fentanyl, that little packet could kill 500 people. So think about that. That's how important this is. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. If
Thank
have
you
any
very much.
questions,